Hello, everyone. My name is Gina Jimenez, and today I will be presenting on relational cultural therapy, also known as RCT. This is a postmodern, socially conscious therapeutic approach that places human connection at the center of psychological well-being. In this presentation, I will explore the history of RCT, its core principles, how change occurs, the nature of the counseling relationship, populations best served, and the current neuroscience that supports this theory. By the end, I hope you will see why RCT remains one of the most relevant and culturally responsive models in contemporary counseling. Core principles of relational cultural therapy. RCT is built on several foundational principles. First, the theory teaches that people grow through relationships, and more specifically, through mutual empathy and connection. In contrast, emotional suffering often stems from chronic disconnection, shame, or relational rupture. Unlike traditional models that focus primarily on the individual, RCT places cultural context, power, and marginalization at the forefront. This means we consider the client's lived experiences, identities, and also social location as the essential pieces of the therapeutic work. From the RCT perspective, healing occurs not through independence, but through building authentic, supportive, and empowering relationships. These happen inside and outside the therapy room. RCT with diverse and multicultural clients. One of the strongest contributions, in my opinion, of RCT is its alignment with multicultural and social justice counseling. It actively attends to the client's cultural context and the systemic barriers that the client faces. The theory examines what we call quote unquote relational images, expectations. These are expectations and beliefs about the relationships that are shaped by our early experiences or our culture, or also our identity. RCT invites clients to explore issues such as identity development, oppression, relational trauma, and also belonging. This approach validates the real impact of marginalization, racism, sexism, homophobia, and other oppressive forces on our mental health. Because of this, RCT is especially effective for diverse populations and also for clients who have experienced relational and cultural disconnection. Background and development of RCT. RCT emerged in the late 1970s through the work of Jean Baker Miller and her female colleagues at the Stone Center. They challenged traditional individualistic psychological theories that framed autonomy as the hallmark of mental health. They instead proposed that growth occurs through relationships, mutual empathy, and social connection. It is deeply rooted in feminist theory. It emphasizes how systemic power, marginalization, and cultural context all work together to shape emotional well-being. So, from its origin, RCT was designed to address not just the individual symptoms of the client, but also the relational and societal forces that contribute to distress. Basic tenets of RCT and also the mechanisms of change. RCT teaches that humans are biologically and psychologically wired for connection. When we experience consistent disconnection, especially when paired with shame, we tend to develop survival strategies that can appear as maladaptive mental health symptoms. RCT focuses on developing what they call, quote, growth fostering relationships. These are built on mutual empathy and empowerment, as I discussed previously. These relationships produce what the Stone Center called, quote unquote, five good things. And I love this. These five good things include increased energy, greater clarity, enhanced sense of worth, the ability to take constructive action, and a desire for more connection. These relational outcomes reflect therapeutic change. Nature of the counseling relationship. One of the defining features, in my opinion, is RCT's nature of the therapeutic relationship. Instead of the therapist acting as the expert, like a doctor who interprets and instructs, RCT emphasizes authenticity, humility, and relational mutuality. The therapist names power dynamic openly with the client from the get-go and works to create safety through collaboration with the client. The client is seen as capable, resilient, and motivated toward connection. And because disconnection is what harms us, the therapeutic relationship becomes the strongest predictor of change. Populations and presenting issues best served by RCT. RCT is particularly effective for individuals whose distress is rooted in shame or isolation or relational trauma. The theory is widely used with marginalized populations because it can directly acknowledge social and cultural power dynamics. Clients who have experienced oppression or microaggressions or identity-based invalidation often find that RCT is validating and empowering, as well as affirming. There's much evidence that supports RCT interventions for treating depression, trauma responses, and relational disturbances. There is, like I said before, much research, and the research base for RCT continues to grow, especially within multicultural counseling literature. In 2021, Singh and colleagues highlighted how RCT enhances relational resilience, mutual empathy, and client empowerment. Additional research shows that RCT effectively reduces shame, improves emotional regulation through connection, and also strengthens the therapeutic alliance, one of the top predictors of counseling outcomes as we know. RCT's therapeutic process involves helping clients explore relational images. Relational images are known as internalized expectations about relationships that came from our most early experiences and also from cultural messages. RCT counselors focus on moments of disconnection and shame, and they work together to understand how those patterns developed. The goal is to help clients cultivate relational authenticity and reduce shame-based isolation, and also develop the capacity for mutual empathy. The aim ultimately is to help clients create a more meaningful and connected relationship with those in their lives. Modern neuroscience powerfully supports RCT's foundational belief that humans grow through connection. For example, co-regulation between two people reduces activation, limbic activation, and helps stabilize the nervous system. Also, mirror neurons research shows how empathy is grounded in the brain. Chronic relational disconnection elevates stress hormones and impacts emotional regulation. Meanwhile, healthy connection increases oxytocin and supports neural integration, as well as fosters emotional resilience. One of RCT's greatest strengths, in my opinion, is its emphasis on social justice, empowerment, and multicultural responsiveness. It encourages the therapist to engage authentically and consider the client's cultural and relational context. The approach is trauma sensitive. It's also based on the client's strengths and is also compatible with attachment theory. However, there are some limitations to RCT, excuse me. Although RCT is powerful, it does have its limitations. For example, it's not as manualized or structured as, for example, CBT or DBT. And this can make it very hard to evaluate in randomized trials. Clients who have been severely betrayed in relationships may initially struggle with mutuality. And because RCT requires therapist authenticity, it demands a high level of self-awareness on behalf of the therapist and also a lot of relational courage. RCT reminds us that connection is essential to human well-being. Rather than viewing struggles as individual deficits, I love RCT because it helps us understand how cultural context, relationships, as well as systemic barriers shape our emotional health. What stands out the most to me about this model is its emphasis on mutuality, authenticity, and also because it honors the client's lived experience. It offers a compassionate and culturally responsive framework that supports clients in reducing shame and strengthening meaningful relationships. To close, I'd like to share a quote that I found by Irene Stiver. When disconnections are met with empathy, the fear of vulnerability gives way to courage and relational resilience. Thank you.